Good day, I'm Bob the Necromancer, and today we're doing an unboxing.
Alrighty, now here we are at the workspace, and first up we have this beautiful new motherboard over here, and now we're just going to quickly unpack it, and bam, just like that we have unpacked it. So we're going to go place this down over here, and now the first thing we're going to be installing is the NVMe SSD. Now there are two slots on this motherboard over here. There's one over here, this is the secondary one, the PCIe Express 3.0, and we have the PCIe 4.0 slot over here. So let's go and remove this. And now we're taking off the heatsink. Also, just a side note, PCIe stands for Peripheral Component Interconnect Express, just in case anybody was wondering. So we're going to now place the heatsink down, and we're going to have a look at the slot over here. So now we're going to go and fetch our beautiful little NVMe SSD. And here we have it right here. Now we're just going to unpack this quick, and bam, there we have it right there. So if you notice with this SSD, only the larger SSDs will have these circuitry, these big circuitry parts over here. I actually am not too sure what these parts are, and I don't want to go around quoting wrong figures for you guys. But if you see these little circuitry components over here, larger SSDs will have on both sides. So on here you can see it's quite flat. However, if it was 2 terabytes or more, you would have on both sides. However, in our case over here, we have just a 500 gigabyte one. So now what we're going to want to do is we are going to want to place this with those little black pieces of circuitry facing upwards, as then it can come into contact with the heatsink and it can dissipate the heat quite effectively. What I like to do in order to get this inserted is I like to place it at about 30 degrees over here. Go and put a little bit of force in there, not too much. We're going to lay it down here, and we're going to go grab our screw. This will come with your motherboard. Here we have a little screw. Also, sorry, just a bit of a side note, but I've already installed rubber padding over here as I was doing a run through this just to make sure that everything was correct. And I actually need to install another screw over here. This will also come with your motherboard. Little one like this is just to help balance it. It's not 100% essential, however it will be extremely nice as it will help improve stability. Okay, so now that we have it screwed down over there, we're now going to take our SSD and we're going to place it like so. Now, because this is quite a tight fit, we are going to want to employ a little bit of a strategy here. So we're going to want to lift it just a little bit and start to screw it in, just so it grabs the thread. We're going to lift it out a bit so that it catches. There we go, just like that. And there we go. You see how it moved? Therefore it is actually moved into the correct position. I don't like to force things, so I just like it to naturally go in once you've put the screw to the thread. Okay, and now we have it nicely installed in there, nice and firm as you can see. And now we're going to go put this one back on top. There we go, and that's our NVMe SSD installed. Next up, we are going to be installing the components required to mount the AIO. To do this, we're just going to be, putting a mounting bracket on the back of the motherboard, along with some spacers that will then be attached to the AIO pump itself. Anyway, to do this, we are going to be turning the motherboard around, and we're going to be placing our mounting bracket over here. This one has 3 configurations over here. You can adjust it by pushing this up and down. In this case, I'm just going to be using the middle one as it fits my motherboard quite well. We're just going to go and there we go. Bullseye. Now we just turn it around without letting it fall out. Nice and easy. Now next up, we're going to be applying 4 spacers. We don't want to apply too much pressure as we don't want to damage the PCB in any sort of way. And then we will go and mount the brackets onto the AIO. And there we go. There we have our 4 spaces on there. And now we're going to bring our AIO from the future, as the order will be a little bit whack, but... So, here we have our CPU cooler itself over here. As you can see, it's got a piece of plastic over here. This is to keep the surface intact, so that there's the maximum amount of surface area microscopically for the thermal paste to spread around. Anyway, so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking these brackets over here, and we are going to be mounting them like... Oops, wrong way. We're going to be mounting them like so. So after more time than I'm willing to admit, I eventually managed to get the screws on over here, and it will look like this over here. As you can see, there's screws on this side over here. Screwed in from this side, and then we have the brackets on the side, right like this. But it's a bit difficult to tie them on since the bolts and the brackets are a bit difficult in this position. Either way, we will leave this disconnected from the motherboard until the motherboard and the AIO itself have been installed, and we'll put this on last. Alright, so we're back to our motherboard over here, and now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be installing the CPU, or the Central Processing Unit. Now, as you can see, there's this black thing covering the LGA 1200 socket. Now an LGA 1200 socket will hold 10th gen and 11th gen processors. This will be abbreviated by the number over here. I'm not sure if you can see that, but this is an i5 11600 2.8 GHz CPU. The 11 in front of it stands for 11th generation, just as a little side note. So, this over here is used to protect the pins in case there's any sort of rough transportation or mishandling, as if any of the pins get damaged, it can prevent the motherboard from working. This is also used for warranty purposes, as the manufacturers will not take back any motherboards, and you won't be able to claim warranty unless you have this with you. So for starters, we're going to now remove this nice and safely. Pin down, out, up, all the way up. Now usually it's clipped in over here, but this clip can be a bit annoying to get off, so I've just taken it off in advance, and we would usually clip it off over here, and we'll take it and we'll put it to the side. Now, we have our CPU over here, and here we go. It is, as I said, the i5 11600, and now when we install it, it'll only go in one orientation. Never force a CPU in, it must always go in nice and smooth, like so. As you can see, it feels like it's absolutely meant to be there, so it is perfectly fine. Now, we're going to bring this down over here. Now, a little mistake people make is they have to bring this back first. You hear that drop? It is now dropped below this little screw over here. So now it will grip it on the sides. So now you have to apply a little bit of pressure here. Don't worry if it feels a bit tight. You push it down and under. Now we've actually made sure there's going to be good contact. And just like that, we have installed the CPU. Alrighty, and for our last component, we're going to be installing the RAM, or the random access memory. Right over here, I have a single stick of 16 gigabytes of DDR4 3600 MHz RAM. One stick isn't ideal, as this is a dual channel motherboard, as denoted by the colors over here of black grey and black grey. When installing this, we're going to be using the notch to determine our orientation, and just as a side note, we should not be handling it on the gold part over here or touching that, as if we do scrape that, it'll cause connectivity issues and could result in crashes or the computer not starting up at all. So, we're going to install it over here. A good way to install this is to line the notch up over here, as seen. Now we're going to be installing on this one over here, as the manual has told me this is the A slot, and since this is dual channel, this will be the first one I'm installing it in. It'll also help us to prevent us from getting in the way of the cooler, if that so does happen. Anyway, now it's in there. Now we're going to push down on both sides, nice and firmly. There we go. Real nice. It is in nice and firm. We've clicked it up, and we heard the click, and everything is in. But yeah, that is it for the motherboard for now. Now we'll move over to dismantling the PC. And now here we have our beautiful new case. It will be chucking this into. As seen over here, it's nice and roomy, and will make for a nice fit. Now we just need to gut it, although it is already dragging its entrails behind it, but we will complete the job now. Alrighty, now here we are at our recently opened up PC, and now this is what we're going to be putting that motherboard into. A little bit dusty, so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be replacing the motherboard as well as the power supply, which is a bit over here. but we'll start with the motherboard, and once we've got all that removed, I'll give this a good clean out, a good wipe down, and we'll insert it in, and yeah, let's see how it goes. First things first, we're going to take out this one over here, which is the F panel. There's no particular order you need to do this, but we'll take out the F panel first. This refers to any of the connections that the case has, like the power button, the reset button, the LEDs, all that stuff. So now that's out over here, we have them separated over here. We'll fit those in individually when we place the motherboard down. Then we have one of the fans over here. We'll also unplug that. It's a system fan. And now we have the USBs, the additional USBs. We'll also take that out. Give it a good wiggle. No problem if you need to use a bit of force. And now what this is over here is this is your USB 3 over here. It doesn't seem like it was plugged in on this one, so that's my bad on my behalf. Even though I did buy this from someone else, I should have checked this. But yeah, then we got the SATA cables over here. We're going to disconnect those. And out they come. And then we have the 24-pin power connector. We're going to take that out. Now when you take this one out, give it a wiggle while you lift the clip up. Important to lift the clip and keep even pressure on the motherboard itself. And out it comes. Easy peasy. So, moving along. And this over here, I'm not exactly sure what this is for. I think this might be for a fan. Yeah, this is for a system fan. We're going to take this one out as well, since we're going to be relocating it to the new motherboard. And then we have the 8-pin power supply, which is to the motherboard. The CPU. Give it a wiggle. It's got a clip as well. And out it comes. Also splits into two, if in case the motherboard does not support an 8-pin connector. And finally we have the F audio panel over here. I've done this in no particular order, just yeah, there's no particular order you need to do this in. This is just what I happen to do. Grab it at the cords and give it a little bit of a tug while applying even pressure. And out it comes. And everything over there is unplugged. Now we are going to unscrew the motherboard itself. Be sure to take all the screws out, as you do not want a screw to be lying around in the case, as it could easily cause a short circuit and ruin your day. So it seems like this one had a lack of a couple of screws over here, held down by a couple, but it was missing a few. So we're just going to go and we are going to take these out. Now we are going to be able to take the motherboard out, assuming I have not missed any more screws. This one had 4 screws holding it in. I would recommend more screws holding your motherboard down, as you do not want your motherboard to move around in the slightest. And out it comes. Now we'll go keep this one, and I'll go stash away for safekeeping, and perhaps you'll see another video with it coming. So over here we have a bit of a bird's nest of cables. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be removing any cables that aren't 100% necessary, and we'll be taking out any components that we don't need. Like this SSD over here, we'll be having an NVMe in our drive, as you saw earlier, so we have no need to keep this one over here. We can go repurpose it for something else. So let's start by unplugging it, as well as its power connector over here. So we have a hard drive over here in the bottom left. We're going to be unplugging that. It's SATA cord first, and then we'll be taking its power cable. Out you go. Next up, we're going to be taking this one to the side. Since this belongs to all the fans, this is going to stay with the case itself, so we'll just put it to the side for now. These all belong to the power supply. We call these ketchup and mustard cables. So we're going to also try to get these to the side, as we will be needing them obviously for our new motherboard. I'm now going to begin to unscrew the SSD over here, just so we can get rid of this guy. And out it comes. We'll remove the bracket a little bit later. Next one, it comes out, we have another SATA cable, very nice. We have a couple of small ones. These probably belong to the case itself. Yeah, as we can see. Let's see if we can focus on that. We have the power LEDs over here. So this is going to belong to our front or F panel. So I'm going to toss those to the side. Okay, so now what we're going to do, I'm going to rotate the camera a bit over here. And a little bit down. As you can see, we are going to be removing the screws over here so we can get the power supply out, as I do want to switch this one out with a better one. As you can see, the power supply is moving quite a bit now. So we're just going to find a way to get this out of here. Not too much hassle. I think this might also open on the other side, so I think that's what I'm going to do. So unfortunately, after some looking, this has been pop riveted down, so we can't remove it with screws, or screwdrivers, should I say. However, so we'll just have to take this out manually. So we're going to move the wires to the side, and we're going to just lift it up. Nice and easy. Okay, now that that's out of the way, we can see that there's quite a bit of muck around here. So we're going to be getting rid of the last of the cables over here and just organizing them, and I'll get rid of this hard drive as well and replace it with the ones we want. Actually, before that, I'll even give it a clean. Alright, so we've returned now with the PC case all nice and cleaned up, and we've also managed to get ourselves a nice little 600 watt power supply. So we are going to be putting this guy in right over here. I'm going to be doing it at a bit of a strange angle, just so that we can get the best airflow out of this. And there we go, just like that, we have the brand new power supply installed. A lot of new, nice, sexy cables. So next up, we're going to be doing the hard drives over here. We're going to be using these to insert it into these slots over here. So we've got the hard drive, and we're going to be connecting it into these holes over here. There we go. And we have it nicely slotted in. That's our first one. I have two, so I am going to, same story. We have our clips over here, and we have our ports right over here. Cool. And bam, there we go. Now all we need to do is 1, 2. This case is an absolute pleasure to work with. So now we have the power supply and we have the hard drives, and next we're going to be going to the motherboard and then the AIO. I've done a bit of cable management, as well as I've added these and a rear back panel, as that's just quite a lot of bending of metal to do. Nothing too complicated. So now we're going to be adding in our motherboard right over here. Really fun part. Also a little bit stressful though. As we can see, we got some screw-ins over here, in the middle, and also over here and here. And if you can see, it matches over here and here, as well as down here, 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 and here. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go put it in, line them up, screw it down. We're just going to do this nice and slow though, as we don't want to damage the board. And there we have it right there. We have it nice and locked down, nice and sturdy. And now we can get to doing some cable management, and we'll install the I/O next. Now we're going to be installing the cooler. As you can see though, I have moved around the system's fans, as The RAM over here was blocking me from installing the AIO right over here where I wanted it. However, that wasn't a problem. I just removed these fans and put 2 fans over here so that we have a nice airflow of air coming in through here, and then going out the top over here. So, what we're first going to be doing is we're going to be putting this cooler onto the socket over there, and then we'll be installing this along with the fans. I have removed the fans that I showed me installing earlier. As I said, it's just preference on which side you want them on, so therefore it's more the concept or proof of concept that I showed you earlier. So let's begin. Important, we need to get rid of this little plastic over here. It has a nice warning on there. And now if we didn't remove that, it would cause all sorts of thermal problems, as obviously heat would not dissipate and be distributed evenly, causing a lot of overheating problems. So we're going to go right ahead and we are going to remove this. Shiny. So, next up, we're going to be applying our thermal paste right over there. Thermal paste patterns don't matter too much, as long as you just make a decent amount in the middle, not too much, not too little, you should be okay. Next up, we're going to be putting the cooler down. It's going to be a little bit tricky, don't want to get thermal paste anywhere. However, do take note that thermal paste is non-conductive for the most part, unless it is a metal thermal paste, in which case you definitely do not want to be putting that on your components. So, remember, air comes in through this side over here and it exits out the back here. So we're going to be pushing air through here. I'm going to attach it on the side and just move it a bit over here so you guys can see. So after more time than I'm willing to admit, I eventually got those last few screws tightened in, and yeah, it's good to go, all locked in and loaded. And now for the final piece, and the most beautiful piece of all, if I don't say so myself, the graphics card. As you can see over here, this is a GTX 1070. When handling this thing, as per usual, do not touch the gold connectors over there, as you do not want to damage it. We're going to be inserting it right over here. The slot, make sure that this little guy over here is down, as it is usually up, and we're going to insert him in. Nice. Sorry about the camera over there. All we had to do was we had to screw in the 2 pins over there, and we have our graphics card all ready to be plugged in and for the system to start. So many hours of cable management later, we have come to arrive at this nice, neat looking setup. Now, cable management isn't usually my forte, however I think I've done a decentish job of cleaning this one up. So, if you also haven't noticed as well, I've replaced this fan over here with one that fits the trio of fans over here, just so that we have a nice aesthetic look. We also have a nice airflow of air coming in through here, and it exiting out the top of the case over here. So, I'm now also going to be showing you how to do the pins and the ports of the motherboard. Each motherboard does vary, so I would highly recommend looking at your manual and consulting it for your particular configuration. So, at the bottom over here, we have our SATA connectors, or our Serial Advanced Technology Attachments. These guys are responsible for carrying data to and from your motherboard and your hard drives. In my case, I have 2 hard drives, and therefore I will have 2 SATA connectors. They can also be connected to SATA SSDs. Next up, we have the front header panel over here. Now what these are is they are responsible for all the buttons on your case. In this case, it is the HDD LEDs or your hard drive LEDs, as well as your power LEDs, reset button and power button. Then moving along to the side, we have our USB Type 2 connector or front panel header, and we have our audio or HD audio panel. Now, all the stuff along the bottom, excluding the SATA connectors, are responsible for the workings of this stuff over here. As you can see, we have quite a few connectors. In this case, we have 2 Type 3 USBs denoted by the blue, as well as 2 Type 2 USBs, a power button, audio jacks, and a reset button. So, back to what we were looking at on the motherboard. These are responsible for the buttons and the little LED lights. This one over here is responsible for the Type 2 USBs, and this one is responsible for the HD audio. Moving along, over here we have our graphics card, and as you can see, it has an 8-pin connector in it here. Now this pin can vary depending on the power of your graphics card. In my particular case, it's 8-pin. However, more powerful cards will be 16-pin or somewhere in between. Lower cards may not even have a power pin or plug in at all. In my case though, 8-pin. Right down here, we have 2 little plugs in. This one over here is responsible for all the LEDs of our fans, or particular these 3 fans over here, as they are not of the same brand as the AIO. So, I will show you the workings of how that one works. As you can see, three fans but 1 cable. I have an adapter at the back that has made it a lot easier for me to plug it in to a single RGB header. Then next to that one over there, we have just another RGB header almost. I forget the name of this one actually. I will also just pin a little picture of the diagram so you guys can see. And that is responsible for the AIO's RGB. Moving on to the stuff over here. And firstly, we have a CPU fan over here. We have a couple of these on our motherboard, and just for the sake of convenience, I have attached one of the fans right over here. I also have another one attached over here, and another one attached all the way at the bottom down here. 3 fans, 3 connectors. That is responsible for the power of the fans and is what causes them to spin. So we have our USB 3 connector. Now this is responsible for those blue USB ones we saw on the front of the case, right over here. As you can see, it's quite chunky, as it is able to carry a lot more data than the USB Type 2, and thus is much better for hard drives, flash drives. Then we have arguably the most important one of all, we have the 24-pin power connector. This supplies power to the entire motherboard and is responsible for its entire workings. Not too much to be said. It's got a clip in it, so it's not too hard to mess up its placement. Right over there, we have an 8-pin CPU power input. This also comes straight from the PSU or the power supply unit and is responsible for giving power to our little cooler here. And that basically is all of the actual plugins that we have at the moment. As I said, I have a CPU fan over here, just as a bit of a recap, as I do understand that was a bit out of nowhere. We have one here and one over here, and those are responsible for giving power to the fans. The AIO is powered through this over here, hence why it does not actually have its own connectors for these fans down over here. Right, so now we're at the back of the case over here. All the cords that I have gone and organized come out through the top over here. And as you can see, I've done quite a bit of management. So, just as a bit of explaining, here we have all the LED related lights all coming down here. Here's that connector I was talking about earlier. This one would go and connect to the RGB header right next to the graphics card. And as you can see, we've got the adapter to link all 3 of those fans' LEDs to make it nice and easy for us. Then over here, we have the LEDs from the AIO, which come and connect to this little guy over here, which happens to be magnetic and is also the controller. So we'll have a remote for this guy so that we can go and adjust our lights. So that is all the fans over here, nice along the side. And then we have all the stuff over here, which relates to the front header of the PC, all the USB and the audio jacks on top. as you can see over here, this one over here in particular, this one is the USB Type 3 adapter, or what is it, plug? And then we have the audio header as well as the USB header, which come all the way down and up and out. Then down here in this nice little spot over here, we have our 2 hard drives. Little bit cramped, but not too much we can do in this situation with this amount of cables. I've also stashed away all the additional cables like the Molex and just any of the unused pins and SATA connectors down here, so that we have a nice clean looking view over here. And if you haven't noticed, we have our power supply over here, which is delivering all our main power cables, our 24 pin and our 8 pin through this one. And yeah, that is about it. Now we're going to put this board together and we're going to give it a nice little showcase.
And there we have it. We have reached the end of this very long video, if I do say so myself. I do hope you guys enjoyed, or at very least I hope you guys learned a thing or two. I know I don't usually upload this type of content on my channel. However, if you guys do like what you see, I'll either continue to upload here, or I'll make a second channel for this type of stuff. But yeah, for now, take it easy guys.